Want to know how to set up a microphone properly and get the best possible recording that you can? You're in the right place. Hi, I'm Jason Sanderson from podcasttech.com, where we are here to take the hard work out of your podcasting. So what's the most important thing when it comes to recording a podcast? Aside from the content that you want to deliver, I'd say it's all about how you position your microphone and the environment that you're recording in that leads to a good sounding recording. Today, we're going to be covering 7 ways to get the best out of your microphone and the room that you're in. 1. Proximity. When I talk about proximity, what I mean is getting up close to the microphone. I see way too many people doing recordings where the mic's off on a table somewhere in the distance, or they're using a camera mic several meters away, and then they're just taking it for granted that audio is somehow going to be okay to put on a podcast. It's not. There's several problems that come with having a mic at a distance. The signal that the mic is receiving is quiet. That means we've got to boost the gain higher in order to get a good working level. But by boosting that level, that brings up the noise floor, resulting in a really noisy recording, which is no good for anyone. No bueno.
This smack on head.
Then there's the distance, meaning we're also now competing with the ambience and the natural reverb of the room also being brought up. If you're in an echoey room, there's nothing worse than setting up your microphone at a distance. In almost all cases, I'd say just get your microphone up close. A good distance would be to use 4 or 5 fingers between you and the microphone. So right now, I'm about this distance away from the microphone. If you've got no fingers and you can't judge that, I'm sorry about that, but we're talking about like 8 or 10 centimeters, or for you Americans, maybe 3 or 4 inches, or something else. That's how close I want you to be to it. The microphone, I mean. Getting up close means that we're going to get a good recording level and we're going to get the noise floor as low as possible. We'll record more of the voice and less of the ambience around us. We'll also benefit from something called the proximity effect, which happens with some microphones, which is a boost in bass frequencies the closer that we get to the microphone. You need to think of Barry White getting close to your ears.
Whoa, that's great, man.
Closer will make your voice sound smoother and warmer. Do plosives. Unfortunately, because of the bass boost, that means that the microphone is going to be much more sensitive to high-pressure words, usually the ones starting with P, B, sometimes T. You can do a little experiment here, this is what I like to suggest. By putting your hand in front of your mouth, similar kind of distance to what we just talked about, and we're going to be saying words with the letters P and B in it. So you should feel the air pressure on your hand get stronger when you use those plosive words. Let's go with something like, I love peanut butter on toast in the morning. I love peanut butter on toast in the morning. You can feel those plosive words in your hand as you're doing it. Then what I want you to do is to start to lower your hand really slowly while you're saying P's and B's. So you could say something like peanut butter, peanut butter, peanut butter, peanut butter, peanut butter. And stop lowering your hand when you can feel the air pressure disappear, which is round about here for me. So I'll just go again, peanut butter, peanut butter, peanut butter, peanut butter. And that's where you want to be positioning your microphone. So you've got that distance that we just talked about, and you've also got this air pressure at its loudest going over the top of the microphone rather than directly into the microphone. You should also be angling your microphone. Don't forget, we've just dropped the microphone and you don't want to be pointing it at your chin now, so we're going to point it back up towards our mouth. You should also use some kind of popper stopper, something like this one that I've got here, where it just wraps over the top of the microphone. It's like an Axl Rose type of thing. Or you can use something like this, which is much more like a pair of tights stretched across a coat hanger, or I guess a bit posher. They both do the same job. They're basically reducing the plosive air that's traveling through into the microphone. 3 pickup patterns. Microphones come with different pickup patterns. Think of it as being like a GPS for your microphone's sensitivity, from which direction most of the sound is going to be picked up and from which direction sound will be rejected. So you're pointing your microphone at something and it's like using a compass. Your main sound source where the sound is coming from is north and you want to head north, so that's where you point it. The most common pickup patterns found in most podcast microphones are cardioid, hypercardioid, and omni. So to break that down a little bit, cardioid is picking up mostly from the front, slightly less from the sides, and rejecting the rear. So in this one, it'd be from the front, rejecting slightly less at the sides, and completely rejecting at the rear. Hypercardioid is as you'd expect in the name. We're getting even more at the front, even less at the sides, and it's rejecting the rear, although it's not rejecting as much as what it would be with cardioid. Omni, on the other hand, picks up everything. There's no rejection anywhere. It's picking the same amount all the way around the mic. But as a result of that, you get less of that proximity effect the closer that you get to it. Doesn't have that same bass boost as the cardioid mic would have. So, if we've learnt anything so far, we can easily conclude that a cardioid microphone ticks all boxes for picking up the human voice when closely positioned, and it rejects as much as needed of everything else and has the added benefit of providing a certain richness and warmth to your voice. And hopefully we've concluded that omnis make a terrible choice for podcasting. We don't want to pick up everything, we just want to pick up our own voice. Well, that's unless you're not concerned about making a quality recording and feel the need to just slap a microphone on a table in the distance and use that one microphone to pick up a bunch of people all sat around the same table. Yeah, that's fine, but it's going to sound crap. And it's disregarding rules 1 and number 6 and 7, which we're going to hear about in a minute. For what I can only imagine is for the sake of convenience and cheapness. So you choose. It's up to you, but don't do it. And that includes you, Blue Yeti users. 4. Standard or side address. It's also good to check on the microphone which way the capsule is actually pointing. So whether that's side address, meaning the sound's coming in from the side, or whether it's top side, so wherever the sound source is going into the microphone. I've had clients where the microphone's on the table in front of them and they're thinking it's pointing up towards their mouth, and it's actually pointing down towards the table, and they've conducted many interviews with the microphone pointing at the table. A good test is to put some headphones on and then just tap the microphone or brush the microphone like this. Whether you do it tapping it at the side and tapping it at the top, tapping it at the other side, speaking into the top, speaking into the side, speaking into the other side. It's going to be fairly obvious where the loudest and the clearest signal is, and that's the obvious result that that's the direction you're supposed to be speaking into. You can see on some side address microphones like this one here, my Neumann, that there's a cardioid logo right here, and that also corresponds to the same side that I'm supposed to be speaking into. So the direction you speak to is this side, and also there's a little logo here to say that the pickup pattern is cardioid. Obviously, that's no good if you've got a microphone where you'd be speaking into it topside. You wouldn't have a logo there to tell you that that's where it is. So you're going to have to check it out. You're going to have to do some experimenting, like I just said, tap the mic and see. You'll find your way with it. I've seen people talking into Shure SM7 sideways instead of the top where the capsule placement is. I've seen people talking into Neumann U87s from the top and the capsule placements at the side, like this one. You're spending all this money on a good microphone and then using it incorrectly. So check these things. Otherwise, it's just a big waste of time and money. 5 will make you get a dynamic mic. As for microphone choices, we're going to go into that in a different video. But for some basics now, there are 3 different types of microphones out there on the market. You can get condenser microphones, dynamic microphones, and ribbon microphones. But let's just say, without going into too much detail, make sure you buy a dynamic microphone for podcasting. Dynamic microphones have less sensitivity in dynamic range, a narrower frequency response, and because of that, they have a much better rejection for the noise all around you. So let's just go with that for now, and I'll go into much more detail in the video where I cover which microphone to buy. But please, whatever you do, just don't buy a Blue Yeti. 6. Ambience. We've already talked a little bit about ambience in number 1, where we talked about distance from the microphone. But it's worth bringing it up again because as we're positioning the microphone, we also need to take into account the room and the environment around us. Even if we accept all the other 5 steps, but we're sat in a really echoey room, that echo is going to be creeping into the mic. Now, we do have some post-processing procedures that we can use to reduce the reverb in post, and we'll be making a video about that soon as well, but that kind of processing always comes with like an unpleasant side effect. And it's best to deal with that at the source instead. So try conducting your recordings in a room full of soft furnishings like sofas, beds, curtains, carpets, rugs, and even acoustic panels and tiles if you can afford them. Try and avoid solid surfaces like walls and hard floors, which is obviously a hard thing to do. You're sat in a room surrounded by them. But if you can acoustically treat your room, then all the better. I've even had clients sit with their head and a microphone under a blanket to lock out those early reflections bouncing off close by surfaces in an echoey room. Now, that may be impractical for a video interview with a guest where you need to see each other or whatever, but that could easily be possible when you're recording your intros and your outros and your adverts and your extras. Whenever you're on your own, it's worth thinking about. So do what you can to reduce the sound bouncing around the room. 8. Beep beep noise. Again, even if we've done everything right so far, if you don't find a quiet room to record in, noises are still going to creep into your microphone. You need to place your microphone as far away from that open window with the noisy traffic driving by, or from your laptop's noisy fan blurting out as possible. And headphones! Wear headphones! It's completely pointless positioning your microphone right next to a speaker with the guest's voice aloud and it's picking up their voice as much as your own. I can't stress how important it is to try and avoid these noises and make sure that you and your guest are wearing headphones. So, what I'd suggest is that you take care of these 7 on your side and we'll have a great recording. We over at podcasttech.com can take care of all your post-production work like your editing, your mastering and your publishing. And together we can make for a much more listenable podcast that is effectively going to retain your audience with a distraction-free episode and have them coming back for more. And I guess if a few of these things do slip through the net, we'll do our best to clean it up for you at podcasttech.com. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Pass on the word to your podcasting friends. Maybe we can help them too. I've been Jason Sanderson. What's been your podcasting challenge this week?